All right, on to Chapter 8, Connecting to Network-Defined Users and Groups. All right. If you've used Windows for any time at all in a corporate setting, you'll know that there is a thing called Active Directory, AD, all right? And what's the purpose of this? Well, if you have 200 computers all throughout the organization, it's a royal pain in the neck to go around to each and every one of those 200 and set up a new user or disable a user or something like that. Active Directory is a centralized authentication database. It's one place you can list all your users, all their permissions, and then everybody in that work group, when they go to log onto a computer, it authenticates against that central user. For instance, I can be in the building 700 on the main campus, or I can be in Building A on the Alpharetta North Fulton campus, and I can log in as GTC/I Laminac, give it my password, and boom, I'm logged in. All right. The alternative is the organization I work for during the day. We don't have centralized authentication. And so if a developer or an executive leaves the company, it's a Chinese fire drill. I mean, we have this big long checklist of all the systems we need to disable the login for, and it takes 3 or 4 people all afternoon to disable all this. Well, that's crazy. It ought to be done one time. All right. So here is Active Directory. Active Directory is basically a riff on a couple of open standards: Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, LDAP, and Kerberos and DNS. Kerberos is a ticket granting authentication library where you have one central place that stores passwords. You basically present your credentials to the ticket granting authority, and it grants you a timed ticket that says, all right, you can use this to log into XYZ system for the next X minutes or hours. And of course, DNS, the domain name service. Now, the gotcha here is Microsoft's version. All right. This was back in the bad old days of Microsoft, the evil Microsoft, where their idea was embrace and extend. They embraced open protocols like Kerberos, DNS, and LDAP, but then they extended it. They bolted on their functionality, their additions to the protocol, just enough so that it wouldn't interoperate with the standard versions anymore. That was embrace and extend. So yeah, that came about in, let's see, when did AD first come out? The concept began to emerge in 75, but really Active Directory came about in 1999 when it was released with Win 2000 Server. All right, the pieces of this, LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, first came about in, about the early 1900s? Yeah, it was originally created and released about 1993. So these are pretty old protocols. These are 25-plus-year-old protocols. The other part of that, Kerberos, was... let's see, originally part of Project Athena at MIT. This was part of the project that gave us X Windows. Let's see, it was public. Version 4 was published in late 1980s. It's still under active development. You see the latest stable release was in May 2020, and this is the middle of June. So these are old protocols, but people are still using them. All right. Now, in this chapter, all we're going to do is set up a client to one of these servers. And there's sort of 2 parts. You can set up a client for Kerberos and LDAP. You can do that with let's see, SSSD and the auth config. But really, the Unixy way of doing it is to set up what's called an IPA server. Now, IPA really doesn't stand for India Pale Ale. It really doesn't stand for much of anything. I for identity, P for policy, and A for trusts, I guess. Whatever. But it bolts together various open source parts, such as the 389 directory server. Well, what's that? That's just LDAP. Why? Let's see if we grep 389 etc services, then we find that, yeah, LDAP works over port 389. So 389 directory server is just an open source LDAP server. The MIT version of Kerberos. NTP, why does it need network time protocol? Well, remember, Kerberos hands out a ticket that allows you access to a system for a certain amount of time. So the time between client and server and the ticket granting authority needs to be pretty well locked in. Have a DNS service, the dog tag certificate server, SSSD, and others. Well, as the book says here, IPA is just LDAP plus Kerberos on steroids. IPA can manage sudo rules, SSH keys, both public and host, auto mount rules, much, much more. So we'll be using, setting up an IPA client here in this demo. Now, is it still under development? Yeah, the latest release of FreeIPA was released June 10th, and today is the 14th. So yeah, it's very, very much under active development. Now, I'll just be honest with you, setting up a free IPA server is kind of a pain, not so much because of the software, but because of the configuration, especially the DNS configuration. Why? Because you have to have, well, everybody knows how to set up an A record. That's the IP, that's the name to IP address record. For IPA and FreeIPA and these others to work, you have to also have the pointer record. That is the IP address to name record set up correctly. And a lot of network providers don't let you mess with the PTR record. So, you know, it can be a little tricky to set up. I'll just grant you that. Now, the other good thing about this website, freeipa.org, is they have a public IPA instance that we can play with and set up. So, we're going to try that. We're going to try the yum install FreeIPA client. Yum install. I'm going to have to be sudo for that. And there is 54 packages. Yeah, like I said, is a bunch of software that a lot of different pieces and parts they have put together here. NFS utils, some Python, yeah, a lot of stuff. Well, then the next thing is just to do there's this wonderful script they have put out called IPA client install. And you just give it the domain name, who we're installing as admin, and a little secret password. You can see that in the book, but we will do that, and we'll do sudo there, and let's see what happens. Discovery was successful. Do you want to configure Crony with NTP server or pool address? What does it suggest saying? No, I'm just going to take the defaults. Continue to configure the system with these values. Wait a minute, no, I really, really do want all this set up, so I'm going to configure that. Pool, do you want to configure with these values? Yes. trying to sync its time with Crony. Remember, NTP was the older network time protocol service to synchronize clocks. Crony is sort of the newer one, mainly because it can be like an order of magnitude more precise. All right, well, it says it was successful. All right, so let's try out some of these. Let's try get in. Let's see if we can get a password. Excuse me. I'm trying to do a paste. There it is, and there it is. The test employee is home employee. Now I'll show you that is actually not in our password file. Grep. See, there is no employee in our password file, so it has to be getting this from IPA. And so let's see. Let's get the see who is in the group of employees. There it is. We got the employee and the manager in there. We'll see the host name of there, and it does not exist, but oh well. Let's see if it will let us SSH to log in. Nope, couldn't resolve host name. They don't have the DNS set up for my test client demo1 freeipa.org anymore for some reason. But yeah, there it goes. It pretty well works. And also, we can, just to show that it really does work, we can, I think they have a web interface like that. Oh yeah, there it is. There is the demo right there. Come on, where is it? There we are, admin and secret 123, all right. Whoops. Yeah, there it goes. All right. So there it is. There is admin, employee, help desk, and manager. We can add a user, maybe, let's see, student, Joe, student, class, Red Hat. Let's see, the group ID would be, say, employees, password, testing 123, testing 123. We add it. There, now we have student is Joe's student. And now we could see if we could get EMP employee. Let's try get password student. Ah, there he is. See, Joe student. I'm going back and putting this little addendum at the end because I realized when I was going back and reviewing the video, I never showed the payoff, namely logging into the new system as the new user. All right, recall we had created the user Joe student in the FreeIPA server. Over here on the client, we could do a get int password student, and it showed us the password entry. In order to log in, we need to add his home directory, home student. So I'm going to do a McDear home student and make sure he owns it. So I'm going to do a ch8 his user ID and group. ls-l home student, ls-ld, just to make sure. Yeah, he is user student in the group employees. All right, now I'm going to do a new window and try and log into that server using our new student credentials. All right, so I'm going to do an SSH student at 10.0.0.9. And it should ask us for our password. Remember, that was testing123. And it takes a second to authenticate. Yes, and we are logged in. I am in /home student. I can do a k-list and see that I am logged in as student at demo.freeipa.org. My Kerberos ticket starts now and goes for 24 hours. All right. So yes, that was the final payoff that I never really put in there, but there it is. So yeah, you can essentially create new users and they can log in with that identity to any number of client systems.